Carl Jung's warning was never more relevant than when you confront addiction. Because what you call a craving is not always hunger for the substance, it is hunger for the part of yourself you've buried. The bottle, the pill, the screen, the person you can't stop running back to, they are not the disease, they are the disguise. What if your addiction is not the problem, but the messenger? What if the very thing you've been running from is the key to why you can't stop running at all? You tell yourself you can quit whenever you want, but how many times have you sworn it, only to crawl back when the silence grew too loud? You tell yourself it's about willpower. But if it were, why do the old patterns keep returning no matter how hard you try? And what if it isn't weakness, but blindness? The blindness of refusing to face the inner truth your addiction is guarding. Because every sip, every click, every high is more than relief. It is rebellion against the truth you don't want to see. And until you face that truth, you will keep mistaking the drug for the cure, the habit for the comfort, the compulsion for control. So the real question is not, how do I stop? The real question is, what am I refusing to face? And how much longer will I let it run my life in secret? Addiction is never just about the substance or the habit. It is about the truth you have buried so deep that you no longer dare to name it. The bottle is easier than the grief. The pill is easier than the rage. The endless scrolling is easier than the silence where your real questions wait. And so you cling to what numbs, because to feel would mean to face yourself, the one opponent you have spent your whole life avoiding. Think about it. How many times have you promised yourself, this is the last time? How many times have you convinced yourself you were stronger than the craving, only to return the moment loneliness, shame, or emptiness came knocking? Do you see how the cycle is less about weakness and more about refusal? Refusal to face the pain. Refusal to admit the hunger. Refusal to name the wound that has been dictating your every move. Jung's philosophy makes the stakes clear. What you bury in the unconscious does not disappear. It festers. It organizes your life in the shadows. It calls the shots and pulls the strings, and you keep mistaking the puppet for the puppeteer. The drug, the compulsion, the obsession, they are not the real problem. They are the symptom. And unless you are willing to face the root, you will cut the branches again and again, only to watch them grow back thicker. So the question presses, what are you actually feeding when you feed your addiction? Is it loneliness? Is it unacknowledged grief? Is it the part of you that never felt seen, never felt loved, never felt enough? And when will you stop pretending that the substance can heal what only truth can? This is why so many who try to quit without facing the inner truth relapse, because they attack the habit, not the hunger. They silence the craving without asking what the craving was crying out for. Until you shift your gaze inward, you remain chained, because no matter how much you run, you cannot outrun yourself. Jung's warning is not meant to shame you, but to awaken you. Healing begins the moment you stop asking, how do I stop this, and start asking, what is this pointing me toward? Addiction is not your enemy, it is your messenger. And if you are willing to listen, it will reveal not only the truth you've been avoiding, but also the very purpose you were born to live. So ask yourself now, are you ready to face the truth that your addiction has been hiding? Or will you keep fighting the symptom while the wound grows deeper? Because until you face it, nothing will change. And once you do, everything can. You call it discipline when you force yourself to abstain. You call it strength when you go a few weeks without slipping. You call it self-control when you grit your teeth against the craving. But underneath, you know the truth. Those masks are thin. They are not healing. They are delay. Because as long as you cling to the appearance of virtue without addressing the wound beneath, the shadow waits. And the shadow always collects its debt. Addiction thrives on masks.
It thrives when you pretend you are fine, when you convince the world you have it under control, when you perform normalcy while hiding the storm inside. Do you see how even your attempts to appear strong are often just another disguise for weakness? Do you see how the mask of self-control can actually keep you chained because it hides the part of you that is crying out for help? Jung understood that the shadow often dresses itself as virtue. You call it care when you keep sacrificing yourself for others while secretly resenting them. You call it resilience when you refuse to rest, working yourself numb to avoid silence. You call it discipline when you obsessively control your diet, your schedule, your habits, all to escape the chaos within. But every mask you wear only feeds the shadow behind it. Ask yourself, when you tell people you're strong, is it strength or is it fear of appearing weak? When you hide your emptiness behind productivity, is it ambition or is it terror of stopping long enough to feel? When you convince yourself you can quit any time, is it confidence or is it denial? This is why you cannot heal until you strip away the mask. Because addiction is not just the bottle, the pill, the endless scrolling, the secret behavior. Addiction is the performance that hides your wounds so well that even you start believing the lie. And the lie is simple: I am fine. But you are not fine. You are starving. Starving for honesty. Starving for love. Starving for the moment when you no longer have to act strong, but can finally be whole. And until you admit that your virtue is nothing more than a cover for your vice, Jung saw this everywhere. He saw how people clung to religion not as a path to God, but as a way to hide from their doubts. He saw how people obsessed over morality not out of love for goodness, but out of fear of their own capacity for evil. He saw how men chased power not to serve life, but to escape the wound of feeling powerless as children. And he saw how every addiction, whether to substances, to relationships, to work, to approval, was just another mask hiding the shadow. So the real question becomes, which mask are you hiding behind? Are you pretending to be disciplined while secretly collapsing? Are you pretending to be generous while secretly resenting everyone who takes from you? Are you pretending to be strong while secretly terrified of being seen as weak? You will never heal until you strip it away, because addiction is not healed by appearing better or by convincing others you are on track. Addiction is healed when you stop lying to yourself, when you stop calling weakness strength, when you stop dressing fear as love, when you stop confusing collapse with care. And yes, this is terrifying, to admit that the very traits you've leaned on, strength, generosity, discipline, resilience, may not be what they seem. To admit that your light has been serving as a mask for your shadow. To admit that sometimes your virtue is simply avoidance in disguise. But until you do, you cannot face the truth that will set you free. Because the truth is, your shadow does not care about your mask. It knows the wound, it knows the hunger, and it will keep driving you toward the bottle, the pill, the compulsion, until you finally stop pretending. So ask yourself now, how much longer will you keep wearing the mask? How much longer will you keep calling your denial discipline? How much longer will you keep insisting you are strong when deep down you know your strength has been performance, not reality? The shadow is not fooled, and the addiction is not fooled. Only you are. This is where healing begins, not with proving your strength, not with looking virtuous, but with admitting the mask has failed. Because once you admit it, you stop wasting energy keeping up the performance. You stop pouring strength into pretending, and you finally have the strength to face the real battle, the battle not against the drug, but against the truth you've been avoiding. And in that battle, you will either collapse or awaken. Collapse into the mask forever, or awaken to the reality that what you feared most, your shadow, is not there to ruin you, but to redeem you. The question is, will you face it, or will you keep letting the mask keep you blind? Addiction is not just chemical, it is symbolic.
It is not simply a matter of dopamine spikes or neural pathways, though those play their part. At its core, addiction is the psyche's attempt to solve a problem it cannot bear to face consciously. Jung taught that whenever the conscious ego refuses a truth, the unconscious finds a way to force it back into your life. Sometimes it comes as dreams. Sometimes it comes as projections onto others. And sometimes it comes as compulsion, the craving that will not let you go no matter how much you fight it. This is why addiction is not cured by willpower alone. Because the thing you are fighting is not just the bottle or the screen or the needle. The thing you are fighting is yourself, the part of you you've refused to meet. How many times have you told yourself you were done only to return again? How many times have you begged, promised, or threatened yourself only to feel the pull rise up again stronger than before? What if the relapse is not proof of weakness, but proof that the root has not been touched? Jung called this the shadow, the repository of everything your conscious self refuses to see. In the shadow lives your anger, your fear, your shame, your grief. In the shadow live the impulses you condemn in others but secretly carry yourself. When you exile these parts, they do not disappear. They go underground. And there they gain strength. They push back into your life through compulsions, obsessions, and addictions. You think you are addicted to the drug, but in truth you are addicted to forgetting, addicted to numbing what the shadow keeps whispering, addicted to the false peace that comes when the noise of the craving drowns out the deeper ache you refuse to name. Can you see how the substance is not the real problem? Can you see how the drug is just a symbol for the truth you've buried? Jung went further. He argued that every addiction hides a God that is a forgotten part of the soul that you once needed but then rejected. The alcoholic might be carrying a shadow full of unexpressed rage, using drink as a way to suppress it. The workaholic may be carrying a shadow full of shame, using productivity as a way to cover it. The compulsive pleaser may be carrying a shadow full of envy or selfishness, using kindness as a way to escape the terror of being disliked. In each case, the addiction is a mask. Behind it, the shadow waits. So the theoretical foundation is clear. Until you face the shadow, addiction remains, because the shadow is the root and the addiction is the symptom. To cut the symptom while ignoring the root is like mowing the weeds without pulling them. They grow back fiercer each time. Isn't that the cycle you've lived? Isn't that why every promise, every program, every short-lived victory collapses when the real hunger returns? Jung warned, the unconscious will never stop pressing. It will use dreams, projections, fantasies, and finally addictions to bring the message to the surface. The only way forward is individuation, the lifelong process of integrating the shadow into conscious life. This does not mean indulging every impulse. It means listening. It means asking, what part of myself am I running from when I reach for this? What truth am I numbing when I take another drink, another hit, another hour lost in distraction? If you refuse, the shadow grows. If you face it, the shadow becomes an ally. Because the energy that fuels your addiction is not evil in itself. It is raw power. It is life force. When repressed, it destroys. When integrated, it heals. Jung wrote, "The gold is in the dark," which means the very energy you've been wasting in compulsion could be the very energy that fuels your purpose if you have the courage to meet it consciously. So ask yourself, when you crave, what are you really craving? Is it the drug, or is it peace, intimacy, rest, freedom? When you collapse into your habit, what are you running from? Is it boredom, or is it the silence that would force you to face your grief? Is it loneliness, or is it the terror of finally seeing the emptiness inside? And when you wear the mask of virtue, discipline, generosity, control, who are you really trying to convince? Them or yourself? The truth is hard. It will break the illusion of your mask, but it will also break the cycle of your addiction. Because once you recognize that the substance is not your enemy, but your signal, you can finally turn toward what it points to. And what it points to is always the same: the shadow you have refused. This is the foundation of Jung's warning. Addiction cannot be healed by fighting the symptom. It can only be healed by facing the truth underneath. That truth may feel unbearable, but it is not there to ruin you. It is there to free you. And once you accept it, you stop wasting your life in cycles of collapse and begin the harder, nobler work, the work of becoming whole.
The question is, will you do it? Or will you keep fighting shadows on the surface while the real shadow grows below? Will you keep mistaking strength for healing, denial for discipline, survival for life? Or will you finally admit that what you feared most, your shadow, is the only path to freedom? Because until you do, nothing changes. And once you do, everything can. Addiction is not random. It is not a simple weakness of will or flaw of character. It has roots, and those roots run into the deepest layers of your psyche. If you keep treating the symptom without touching those roots, the cycle repeats, sometimes in the same form, sometimes in another, but always with the same hunger gnawing at you. Jung's warning was clear. Until you face what lies beneath, the shadow will keep directing your life from the dark. The first root is pain. Beneath every compulsion lies a wound. It may be childhood neglect, betrayal, humiliation, or the unbearable loneliness of never being truly seen. You reach for the substance not because you love it, but because it quiets the pain, at least for a moment. Have you ever noticed how the craving rises strongest, not when life is good, but when the wound is pressed? That is the shadow calling, reminding you of what you've refused to face. So ask what pain in you keeps demanding anesthesia, and how long will you keep numbing it instead of naming it? The second root is shame. Not the shame of what you did while under the influence, but the shame that existed long before. The shame of not being enough, of being too much, of being unworthy of love. This is the soil in which addiction thrives. You medicate the shame with your habit, but the shame deepens after each collapse, and so the cycle tightens. Jung saw this clearly. The more you exile parts of yourself, the more those exiles sabotage you. The only way out is not to bury shame deeper, but to bring it into the light. Do you dare to admit what you fear most about yourself? Or will you keep covering it with another dose, another distraction? The third root is projection. Addiction often carries what you have projected onto the drug, the screen, the habit. You project comfort, relief, power, belonging. But what you project is actually your own capacity hidden in the shadow. The bottle does not give you courage. It only masks your fear. The drug does not give you peace. It only muffles your chaos. The endless scrolling does not give you connection. It only distracts you from your isolation. Can you see how what you think the substance gives you is really what you already carry exiled into the shadow? And what would happen if you reclaimed it directly? The fourth root is fear of transformation. As strange as it sounds, many addictions are not just about escaping pain, but about escaping growth. If you face the truth, you would have to change. You would have to confront your relationships, your work, your identity. That feels unbearable, so you cling to the drug even as it destroys you, because at least it is familiar. Jung called this resistance the fear of individuation, the terror of becoming who you truly are. Do you see how you are not only addicted to the substance, but addicted to your old self? And do you see how the real fear is not of collapse, but of change? The fifth root is unlived life. Addiction often masks the energy of your unlived potential. Every hour lost in compulsion is an hour stolen from what you could create, build, love, or heal. Jung said, "Nothing has a stronger influence than the unlived life of the parent. The same is true of your own unlived life. That unused energy does not vanish. It festers. It turns inward. It becomes compulsion." What dreams in you have you exiled? What callings have you ignored? And how much of your addiction is not about the drug at all, but about the life you refuse to claim? Put these roots together and the picture becomes clear. Addiction is not the enemy. It is the messenger. It shows you the pain you have numbed, the shame you have hidden, the power you have projected, the growth you have resisted, the life you have left unlived. The drug is just the surface. The real battle is with the shadow that carries all these exiled truths. So what happens if you keep fighting only the symptom? You may gain short-term victories, but the roots remain feeding the cycle. You may switch addictions, but the hunger persists. You may convince yourself you are healed, but relapse returns when the shadow rises again. And so the pattern continues: numb, collapse, shame, repeat. Until one day, you either face the shadow or let it consume you entirely. But what happens if you begin to face the roots? You start to see the pain not as an enemy, but as a teacher. You start to see shame not as proof of unworthiness, but as an invitation to compassion. You start to reclaim your projections, taking back the courage, peace, and power you had given away. You start to accept that transformation is terrifying, but also necessary. You start to channel the energy of your unlived life into something that builds instead of destroys. And in that moment, addiction loses its grip. Not because the substance disappears, but because its roots no longer bind you. So ask yourself, what root is feeding your addiction right now? Is it pain you refuse to name? Shame you refuse to face? Power you've given away? Growth you've resisted? Life you've left unlived? How much longer will you let those roots hold you in chains? And what might happen if you dared to dig not into the substance, but into yourself? Because until you do, the cycle repeats. But once you do, everything changes. The shadow no longer ruins you, it restores you. The roots no longer strangle, they nourish. And the very energy that once destroyed you becomes the energy that fuels your life's purpose. Isn't that the freedom you've been craving all along? Practice is where truth turns into transformation. You have already seen the roots, felt the pull, and named the shadow. But unless you move from awareness to action, addiction remains theory. Jung's work was never about abstract philosophy. It was about lived change, about translating the confrontation with the unconscious into daily life. If you are ready, here are 5 practices. They are not quick fixes, they are lifelong disciplines. And they are the way your shadow becomes not your destroyer, but your teacher. 1. Sit with the craving instead of silencing it. When the craving rises, your reflex is to escape it. You reach for the drug, the distraction, the ritual that quiets the ache. But the first practice is to stay. To feel it fully without moving, without numbing. Ask, what is this hunger really asking for? Is it comfort, connection, power, relief, or rest? When you stay with the craving, it begins to speak. You realize it is not a monster, but a messenger. Can you let yourself sit in that fire long enough to hear the message? Or will you keep silencing it, and with it, silencing the truth it carries? 2. Name the shame beneath the surface. Shame is the invisible fuel of every addiction. You may tell yourself the drug makes you feel alive, but more often it numbs the voice that says you are unworthy. The practice here is ruthless honesty. Write it, speak it, name it. I feel unworthy of love. I fear I will always be abandoned. I don't believe I matter. When you name shame, you rob it of secrecy. Jung taught that what you do not make conscious will control you. So ask yourself, what shame has been running my life in secret? And do I dare to bring it into the light, even if my voice shakes? 3. Reclaim what you've projected. Addiction is projection in disguise. You believe the bottle gives you courage, the pill gives you peace, the habit gives you belonging. But these are yours, exiled parts of your own psyche. The practice is to take them back. Write down,
Alcohol gives me courage. Then invert it. I carry courage. I've been afraid to own. Do the same for every quality you think the addiction provides. Can you start embodying those qualities without the crutch? Can you speak one truth, take one risk, reach one hand for connection without the substance? Each time you do, you pull back a piece of your soul from exile. 4. Transform the ritual instead of killing it. Addiction thrives because it offers ritual, a predictable moment where the chaos quiets. You cannot simply destroy ritual, you must replace it. Create new practices that carry the same symbolic weight. Light a candle instead of lighting a cigarette. Write 3 pages instead of pouring a drink. Walk under the sky instead of scrolling in the dark. The point is not the act itself, but the rhythm it creates, a rhythm that grounds instead of numbs. Ask yourself, what ritual could I create today that honors my soul instead of burying it? 5. Build relationships that see the shadow. Addiction festers in isolation. You hide, you lie, you pretend. The antidote is connection, not shallow, but real. The kind where you can say, I am broken here, and not be abandoned. The kind where your shadow can breathe without judgment. This does not mean handing your soul to anyone. It means discerning who can carry truth with you and letting them walk beside you. Jung knew individuation was not a solitary task. You need mirrors. Who in your life can see the shadow without fear, and are you brave enough to let yourself be seen? These 5 practices are not glamorous. They are not quick, they are not painless, but they are the path. Sit with craving, name shame, reclaim projection, transform ritual, build true connection, again and again until they are not practices but ways of being. And yes, you will resist. You will tell yourself it's too much, too slow, too hard. But what is harder? The slow burn of facing the truth? Or the endless cycle of collapse and shame? What is more painful? Sitting with your craving for 10 minutes? Or living enslaved to it for 10 more years? What is more terrifying? Letting someone see your shadow? Or dying with it unseen, unhealed, unredeemed? You cannot heal addiction by fighting the surface. You heal it by practicing a new life step by step until the shadow no longer owns you. Each time you sit, name, reclaim, transform, and connect, you take back another piece of yourself. And in time, what once felt like chains becomes soil. What once felt like death becomes life. What once felt like your curse becomes your purpose. So ask yourself, which of these practices will you begin today? Will you sit with the craving instead of numbing it? Will you name the shame instead of hiding it? Will you reclaim what you've projected, transform what once destroyed you, and build bonds that can hold you? Or will you keep waiting, pretending tomorrow will be easier? The truth is simple. Tomorrow is never easier. But today, if you take one step, can be the day the cycle begins to break.
And isn't that the life you've been craving all along? You know by now addiction is not the enemy. The enemy is the truth you keep refusing to face. And every time you delay, every time you tell yourself tomorrow, you reinforce the lie that you can live divided. But you cannot. No one can. Jung's final warning was simple. What you refuse to face will run your life in secret, and what you face, however dark, however terrifying, will become your freedom.
So the question is unavoidable. Will you keep numbing, or will you begin naming? Will you keep feeding the shadow with silence, or will you dare to sit with it, speak it, and let it show you the path you were born to walk? How long will you let shame dictate your destiny? And how much longer will you call survival living when you know deep down it is only dying slowly? Addiction will not wait, the shadow will not disappear, and the truth you fear will not grow weaker with time. But you can grow stronger the moment you decide to stop running. You have already seen that the path is not about destroying yourself. It is about reclaiming yourself. The craving, the shame, the ritual, the projection, all of it contains the fire you need for transformation. The only question is, will you pick it up, or will you keep leaving it in the hands of what destroys you? This is the threshold. Step through it, and you begin to heal. Step back from it, and you choose collapse.
No one can make this choice for you. So ask yourself, now, do I want to keep surviving in chains, or do I want to finally live free? The invitation is here. The moment is now. Take one step today, and let the life you have been craving begin.